Good evening and welcome to a special edition of Bronx Talk with the primary set for Tuesday, June 24th. As part of BronxNet's ongoing commitment to voter literacy, we're hosting interviews and debates with candidates who are running for office. Tonight, we focus on the race for the Democratic nomination in the 11th Council District, which includes the Bronx neighborhoods of Bedford Park, Norwood, Kingsbridge, Riverdale, Wakefield, Woodlawn, and Van Cortlandt Village. The challenger in this two-person competition is the Vice President of the Unity Democratic Club, a board member of and educational director of the James Baldwin Outdoor Learning Center, and a former United Federation of Teachers delegate. Please join me in welcoming to Bronx Talk, Danielle Herbert-Guggenheim. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So why do you want to be a council member in the 11th District?
There's a mobility crisis happening in District 11. The middle class is disappearing in many of our neighborhoods in District 11. And I feel that I can make a difference. I will bring bold change and just do things differently than status quo. Status quo has not been working thus far.
When you say mobility, what do you mean?
I mean that effort does not equal reward. People are working harder, longer hours, and not really getting ahead.
How does a city council member impact those things?
Well, by writing laws that would address kitchen table issues. I'm a kindergarten teacher, and I look through the lens of neighborhoods with my students' eyes. The first day of school, I'm not exaggerating, one of my students shared with me that they live in a hotel. That means that they're unsheltered. City Council, we have the capacity to write laws that would address things that ail the Bronx. In particular, that would be housing, health, and education.
Give me a sample of the kind of law that you think would be useful in addressing these kinds of issues that would help. I mean, it's nice to say we will write laws. Well, what laws? Like, what would you do if you were voted in?
TOPA, and
What is TOPA?
TOPA tenants would get the first opportunity to purchase their apartments from landlords that are not good landlords. Housing instability is a crisis that really impacts children learning, and that just makes the cycle of intergenerational poverty keep repeating. So if you are able to create some stability in housing, it would make neighborhoods more stable. It would have, I believe, people be able to join the middle class.
And then how do you do those things? I mean, it's nice to say we want to create that housing. What would you do to help inspire that?
So we need funding. When I went to Albany last year, we spoke with several of our assembly members to ask them to put that in the budget to help tenants, low income, be able to purchase. And that has happened before. In the Bronx, there is a building, is on 134th Street. I believe the address is 400 East 134th Street. And those tenants were able to purchase the building from the landlord.
There were some people at Kingsbridge Terrace who have won a pretty big victory over a landlord. You know, on your website, there's a big headline, "Putting People Over Politics." What does that mean, and how does that translate into action?
People over politics to me means that you work across the aisle. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican, really. And I know it sounds Pollyannish, but just being able to see one another as we are neighbors. I am not doing well if my neighbor isn't. That to me is seeing the person as my neighbor, not necessarily someone different from me.
You talked about when you were the first day of class and a youngster talked about the difficult, I don't know if it was a boy or a girl, difficulty he or she is having in their home life. We've got about 10% of the children in the public school system are homeless or live in shelters. How do you impact that? I mean, we talk about affordable housing, but what specifically do we say to those parents that would say, well, then Danielle is the person I want to vote for?
What do we say to them? Government is failing right now, and we have to put systems in place that would help, as we have done in the past. Mitchell-Lama is one. Section 8 is another. It's really challenging for people to ask for help because they feel responsible and less than because of their situation. So it's important to help without putting a value judgment.
Also on your website, it says something that has been a consistent theme in the Bronx. Certainly viewers who've been watching this program know, despite healthcare being the largest employer group in the Bronx, it is the largest employer in the Bronx. The Bronx has the worst healthcare results in the city. How would you impact that if you were a council member?
So my pause just now is because I'm thinking of a student about 2-3 months ago, a second grader, who died from asthma. And in this day and age, a child dying from asthma speaks to our failures. So to overcome the barriers to quality health care, I would utilize our school buildings. We're underutilizing those buildings. We could have nurse practitioners. We could have medical students, not only servicing the students of the building, but also their families.
When you go into using the school that you work in as an example, when you're in that school and when you visit other schools, what's your impression of how the school system is doing? Are we doing okay? Are there really big problems? I mean, give us an evaluation of what you see.
We are not doing okay. This is May, and I probably have to administer 4 assessments to my 5-year-olds. Test prep. The curriculum, we are losing touch with civics, with art. Forget about play. Play is a bad word, and that it should not be the case in kindergarten. We need to bring that back.
What do you mean about that?
I mean that my school day for my students consists of a 50-minute lunch period. That 50 minutes, some of those minutes are for them to eat lunch.
Of course.
And then go outside to play. That's not enough time. We get gym once a week.
So you're saying they should have more of those kinds of activities?
Absolutely. And part of the problem that we're facing now is people have forgotten what it is to be a citizen. We're not really explicitly teaching that in schools anymore, how to get along with others, collaboration, our American values. No.
Well, of course, a lot of the dialogue coming out of Washington makes it difficult for some people, for logical reasons, are afraid to stand up. Let's just talk about crime. Overall, the crime index in New York City fell for the 7th consecutive month. But what needs to be done that isn't being done or hasn't been done that if you were elected to the city council you would do to help deal with crime?
It needs to be more community policing. And I am not saying anything disparaging about police officers. I value them, as do most people in my neighborhood. We do need more police officers on foot patrol. I would invite police officers into schools. Always, I'm going to fall back on schools because that's my expertise.
That's your perspective.
Yeah.
Yes.
But in kindergarten, police officers are known as community helpers. That should stay the course. It shouldn't be that we look at them as invaders because they're putting their life on the line for us. Also, work. If you have a job, you're tired. You don't want to hang out in the street and do, things that are law breaking. So we have more police officers. People need jobs, and people in the neighborhood need to feel empowered that their voice carries weight. So they need to be involved. If they see something, they should report it.
We're just about out of time. What are the first things you do if you are elected and you're going into office and you say, okay, now I've got to do this? What are those things?
Oh, definitely housing. I would be on my soapbox about housing. We have to create pathways to home ownership. Health is another one. We could be using the schools to give health services to the community. And my dream is to turn our schoolyards to victory gardens where we would have green and we could also grow food and have the students understand that they're part of nature and become stewards. And education. Okay. So yesterday, I had someone come into my classroom that I've never seen before, observed me, and I guess they work for a consulting company. That money that is being paid to the consulting company should be used directly for schools.
Well, Danielle Herbert-Guggenheim, we appreciate your time and good luck the rest of the way in the campaign. And maybe we'll see how it goes, and maybe we'll have you back on Bronx Talk. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, we will take a short break, and then we'll be back with the incumbent in this race for the Democratic primary in the 11th CD. It is Eric Dinowitz. He'll be with us in a moment. Don't go away. Welcome back to Bronx Talk as we continue with our conversation with the candidates in the Democratic primary for the 11th Council District. The incumbent in this campaign is the chair of the City Council Committee on Higher Education and co-chair of the City Council Committee on Hate. Please join me in welcoming back to Bronx Talk, Councilmember Eric Dinowitz. Nice to have you with us.
It's nice to be here, and can I say, it is an honor to be at this table with you, a Hall of Famer.
Oh, yes. Yes, yes. It's kind of unbelievable, but it is true.
It's an honor for me to be here.
Well,
so thanks for having me.
And we're thrilled that you're here with us. So let's get to it. Why should voters reelect you as council member in the primary as we keep going?
Well, look, before I was in the council, I was a public school special education teacher. I served as UFT chapter leader, chair of the Community Board 8's Aging Committee, Democratic District leader. Even before I was in office, I was advocating for our children, for people with disabilities, older adults, working families. And since taking office, since day one, I have been fighting for those very people, and I have been extremely effective. I mean, even in the early days, getting vaccines to our district, opening up new food distribution sites in our district. And in my 4 years, we've made tens of millions of dollars of investments in everything from the services we receive in our district to our parks, to our schools. I've passed transformative legislation. And I think most importantly to the people in District 11, perhaps, closed thousands of constituent cases dealing with everything from keeping people in their homes to installing speed humps and stop signs to keeping the heat on in the apartment.
You talked about being a special ed teacher for all those years. What has that experience lent to your work? And let's get some specifics about the kinds of things that you have done using that experience in your work as a council member.
So one of the things we deal with is the budget and the citywide budget and discretionary budget. So I have fought tooth and nail to make sure our schools have the resources that they need. So the JFK campus, for instance, we just cut the ribbon on a new $5 million sports facility. We revamped the pool at Clinton High School, and every single district school in my district has gotten technology upgrades or hydroponic labs, STEM labs, you name it, they got it. But in the council, it's not just about what we're funding. I have passed transformative legislation that is going to significantly and positively impact our kids with disabilities. I passed what I believe is the first of its kind legislation in the entire country that allows a high school kid with a disability to transfer their IEP and assessment data directly to the college of their choice, easing that transition and making it so that it is easier for them to receive accommodations. And right now, as we're doing the budget, I am fighting for funding for a CUNY program that would centralize their disability system to make it even easier for kids who need accommodations to get those accommodations so they can succeed in college.
What is your evaluation? Maybe I should have asked that first. What is your evaluation of the public schools in your district right now? Are they doing okay? Obviously, you've done things that you believe will improve things, but maybe what still needs to be done? What are the concerns when you walk into a school building and you say, don't quite like this, or this needs work?
Yeah. Well, I'm a product of our public schools.
Me too, I can say all the way through.
Yeah, K through job. Right, I went to public school for K through 12, college, grad school, and then I taught in the public schools for almost 14 years. So I care deeply about what's in our public schools. And our local public schools, despite some of the challenges they're facing, are doing an incredible job. Sometimes what they need is structural changes, and we've worked on that. So for instance, when a new family shelter opened in Wakefield for asylum seekers, the school wasn't getting the support that they needed. So I intervened. I brought together local elected officials.
Support in terms of numbers of students?
For a number of students, but they didn't have another ESL to ENL teacher. The kids at the shelter needed a bus stop, and this was a multi-agency approach. And we actually held a press conference there with the then Chancellor Banks, with the school leaders, to say the school's getting more funding. We're allowing the kids to take home some of the food with them, and the shelter's getting a bus stop. And I was just in Wakefield about a month ago. And something that's seemingly small to some people is big for the kids. They presented to me.
That's transformative, really.
Well, what they presented to me at the Matilda Avenue School, they said, we need new water fountains. This is really important to us. And so that day I got on the phone with the school construction authority, and in less than a month, we got those kids
new water fountains.
Brand new water fountains, and they are so thrilled. We're going to be celebrating that next week. But the point is, when I see a need, I bring people together to get the job done, and that's what we've done. And in other spaces, it means the funding. I mentioned the JFK football field. We got $1 million for PS94 for a new cafeteria. I worked with the borough president to get funding for a new playground at PS24, and you can go through every single school in the district. And when the school comes to me,
and you've supported them.
every step of the way.
I don't want to run out of time and only stay on education, but I do want to talk about higher education.
Sure.
What's the dialogue been like in the Council Committee on Higher Education? What are their concerns and what kinds of actions has those dialogue inspired?
Yeah, well, we have hearings every month. Right now, we're dealing with the budget, and we are fighting for more funding and more investment in programs that we know work, not just for our students, but for our economy. Programs like ASAP and ACE, which provide students with the wraparound supports they need and deserve. So under my chairmanship of the Higher Education Committee, we've gotten that named in the budget, funding specifically allocated for that.
Is that for specifically for CUNY schools?
Specifically for CUNY, schools.
Okay.
We are fighting for more funding to make sure more kids have access to that. And of course, as both higher education chair and chair of the Jewish caucus, we have tackled the issue of anti-Semitism on our CUNY campuses, where I've held 2 hearings on this, one in 2022 and one in November of 24, dealing with the Lippman Commission report. And while there's more to do, we have made great progress in making sure the structural necessities are there to help address this really, what I'd call a crisis in our country.
You know, I'm so interested in that because let's just say a person is concerned about the welfare of Palestinian people being pummeled by Israel, by their insistence on preventing humanitarian aid coming to people who are literally starving. The president talks about moving 1 million people off their own land to Libya. If a person says that's wrong, Israel should stop, are they being anti-Semitic?
No, not at all. And in fact, we've funded, I have fought for funding for programs specifically to have interfaith, interculture dialogue, difficult conversations, whether it's at CUNY, with the $500,000 we provide for that interfaith cross-cultural center, or it's the funding I provide for our middle and high schools for debate. Those conversations need to happen. But those aren't necessarily the conversations that are happening. We can look at the tragic news that happened just yesterday in Washington, D.C. You can look at what's happening at Columbia, where they are preventing people from entering places. They are using hate speech and causing injury to people. That's not the hallmark.
That's a lot different than people
difficult conversations,
protesting and things like that.
Protesting, first of all, is sacrosanct, and we need to make sure people are allowed to do it, and that there are proper time, place, and manner restrictions in place, because it should never devolve into hate speech and hate violence, which is what we see too often on our college campuses.
Just to move along, let's just talk about housing. You voted no on the City of Yes. Why?
We have a lot of development in our city, in our district, and that's all well and good. My concern is when the community does not have a voice in that development. So we're working on 2 projects right now that, because of rezoning, have to go through a vote of the City Council. And because of that, we are able to say to the developers, look, we want more family-sized units. We want more parking. We want more green space. We cannot do that with as-of-right development. And I had deep concerns about taking power away from the community to give it to developers who develop vast majority studio and 1-bedroom apartments and no parking.
Do you feel like, for example, I mean, in my neighborhood, folks know I live in Van Cortlandt Village, there's development going on right now that completely out of context. There's no indication that it will include affordable housing, which, then you say, well, okay, we need the housing. Does the City of Yes prevent you or others from creating a community initiative there, or is it still possible? Because it certainly appears to be wild development that nobody has any input on.
The City of Yes does not prevent us from having community input, but with a rezoning, it allows for community and council oversight and for us to have a real voice. When it's as-of-right development, like it is in your neighborhood, the ultimate decision lies with the developer. So I believe the community needs to have more of a voice in this development. And the city of Yes ultimately made it easier for developers to have more of a voice.
Before we run out of time, priorities for the next term. So you've done all this. You've talked about all the things you've done. If you are reelected, what would you say these are things that I'm going to move forward on?
Well, first and foremost, as I think I mentioned, we've closed thousands of constituent cases. I'm going to continue to fight to make sure every single person from every single corner of the district has a fighter in City Hall for them. That includes our office hours. That's throughout the district. And I'm working on some really great legislation, some of which is going to make it more affordable for people living in buildings, some of which is going to address people who have gone through a fire in their building. And then we have the budget coming out, and I'm going to fight for every single dollar for our district.
I wanted to ask them just about the one you just said. If they have a fire in their building, so what happens? Is it more funding, more support, getting other agencies support?
Yeah, in short,
Councilmember, what is that legislation?
Councilmember Riley and I went to the scene of a fire in Wakefield. And in short, the people had to be evacuated from their house,
right.
But they didn't have clothes or items for the next day to get to work, to get to school. And we relied on the school or elected officials who happen to have clothing. And we don't want to rely on people who happen to have the clothing. The legislation pretty much says each community district has to have a place where they store some clothes and items for the next day, so people can go to work and take care of what they need to take care of and not worry about putting clothes in their back or diapers on their kids.
Give you the last word. You want to take 30 seconds and just make your case to the people of the Bronx?
Am I looking at the camera?
Yeah,
right,
go right there.
Right at the camera? It's not going to be one of those close-ups, is it?
No, go ahead.
Look, since day one, I have hit the ground running, fighting for every single person in every single corner of the district to make sure that they are heard and that I am fighting for them in City Hall. And whether that's through the thousands of constituent cases that I've closed, whether it's through the tens of millions of dollars that I've brought to the district, through legislation or through any other means, the people of District 11 are heard, they have a fighter, and I'm going to continue fighting for the people of District 11 as I go into the next term.
Thank you so much for joining us,
having me.
Councilmember Eric Dinowitz, and good luck the rest of the way. That will conclude tonight's program. The early voting period is Saturday, June 14th through Sunday, June 22nd. Primary, June 24th. It's a Tuesday, of course. Please make sure to vote. And we'll thank all our people. We thank our producer, Rebecca Hemmick, who's doing an amazing job this week. Everybody does, including Director Will Guzman, Urelis Encarnacion on graphics, Ian Neville on audio, the editor, Yessi Diaz. We've got the cast of thousands around us here in the studio, and of course to you two, the most important, and he agrees, it's the people of the Bronx. So if the curtain don't fall, and the creek don't rise, we'll see you next week.